Sync lap 1. Hello, my name is Mantas, and today I'll be giving you a more comprehensive overview into Project floW, my final year software engineering project that I've done for the University of Westminster. It's, or to put short, the work and title is based around a Unity-based virtual reality interface canvas in the form of a Unity asset. So Unity game engine asset. Now, it was designed to work with Google Cardboard. Of course, there are plans to push that forward to make it sure that it works with Daydream, but that will take time and testing. So while I work on other projects, it has allowed me to recreate virtual worlds for different environments using what would be easily described as a template to allow me to recreate those things really quick without needing to go too in depth in creating 3D models. So it uses a couple of different methodologies. Some are minimalistic, some are slightly harder to grasp because they have or they take use of other software, say like Photoshop for instance. But without further ado, what I'll be doing is showing you one of those examples, or one of the recent examples of Project floW and where it's allowed me to create. And I call this one Valhalla. So it focuses around, I guess, what doesn't really focus around. What I tried to recreate was the first season, one of the first episodes of the first season of Vikings. So if you're aware of that, I'll get a reference link there. But it's basically like a Valhalla Norse setting with Icelandic hills, I guess, in the background, and crows. So there's no carnage there from the actual fighting scenes, but it's that kind of atmosphere that I tried to recreate. And I think I've achieved that with this example. So without further ado, I'll be jumping into virtual reality, and you'll be able to see what I'm going to be able to see, and hopefully I'll be able to explain most of the aspects of this project so you can understand what I've done. That's the goal. So without further ado, let's go. And jumping into virtual reality. Okay, so the first things that you see when you jump into the project is the looming mountains right in front of you, or the green hills. To your left, you have an angelic statue that's again part of the Unity asset with a slight shader change so it fits in with the rest of the atmosphere. Above is an asset with multiple instances of crows that are just roaming around. There are two sources of audio, both which are spatial. One that's more stationary though. So the first is emanating from the canyon or the podium that you're standing on. And again, I'll go more in depth in explaining these in the actual Unity scene so you can get a better idea. But that's emanating the background noise or the background music to give that Norse feeling in terms of supporting the whole feel. To your right, just more landscape. Now, the way I created the landscape, or the main immersion point of this, is through orthographic projection. So what this allows you to do is to use 2D textures and create the illusion that this is actual 3D object. However, it's just multiple 2D textures interlapping with each other at different distances. So the very further back, you can see that there's one right behind the angel statue. That gives the angel statue more depth. So it's not like the last thing in the scene that you see is not the furthest thing away. There are mountains behind it. And that's to do with the last layer of the Unity scene, which again, I'll be going into. If you look closer to the hill, you can see that it's actually quite symmetrical. Now that's because when creating this, the enviro capsule is more like a skybox. So it needs to be seamless when it co-joins. And the easy way to do that is to create a symmetrical drop in the center, and then, well, you don't have no point of an alignment. And that makes it more realistic, I guess, if you don't pay too much attention, which again, if you do, you'll see through the illusion straight away. But the whole idea of depth and distance is achieved here. With the crows and right above your head, the green hills, the podium that you're standing on, and the crazy massive angelic statue to your left kind of gives the sense and depth of a mythic kind of feel. Now, taking the headset off and going to the scene, you'll see that this doesn't require a lot of time. So you can recreate these scenes pretty easily. Now, this one in particular took me, I don't know, I'd say half a day. Now, the reason for that is because of the template that I've worked on and used to create Project floW. Again, I've created quite a few others, like the campfire one. I'm also working on one for a current game project with the 2 Game Dev 2017 collaboration with the grad students, which should be ready by the end of this month, of June 2017. But the whole project consists of a lot of research and just getting up to speed and date of the current standing of virtual reality in Android and for Android. Now, since my project has been submitted and completed, there's been quite a lot of changes with the 2017 Google I/O on virtual reality and augmented reality. So Daydream has become a major asset now within Google. So has Project Tango. And those are 2 of the really big projects I'm excited about. So my project right now in the stages is not publishable because I'd like it to be compatible with Daydream. For that, I obviously need the SDK and run tests and forward and port it and create the correct documentation, because right now I understand it. I'm pretty sure it'd be harder for someone else to recreate what I'm trying to do. But what we'll do now is jump into the Unity scene look, so you can see what it's about. So, jumping in, again, the angel statues right here. Selected. I've obviously scaled up to make it bigger, and the whole scene looks very much, very different to what you see or what you experience in virtual reality. It looks nothing like it. If you presented this to a normal, gameplay, they'd look at you like, what the hell are you giving me? Because the whole idea of this menu world is that the player cannot move. The limitation that you put on the player is the player is there in a set environment, with hopefully a UI design in front of him. Again, VR friendly UI design that's just immersive enough, but not too straining on the processor of your hardware. Now, the next 2 are the crowflogs, which are both just there for immersion. Again, intermingling, so there are 2 layers of it. So you have ones that are farther away and ones that are slightly closer to the camera. The podium consists of 3 objects here, but the only one that we're using right now is the podium canyon, which is what the player is standing on. Something stable, something rocky. Solid ground is usually the way to go when you want to give the player a sense of ground. That's what I kind of went for here. Now, the next part is the most important part, is the enviro capsule. The actual textures here resemble more of a rose petal feel. So you have number 1, which is basically the grass. So if I hide all the others, the only thing you see here is the grass, and that's the closest thing to the player. So that made sense to put that at the sphere 1. Now the sphere 2 is the next encompassing layer, which is the first hill, or the first hill that the player sees as soon as they jump in the game. As you can see, it's symmetrical. Sphere 3 is surrounding hills to give that first hill a sense of depth, to make it loom over you, and then have something that's slightly smaller and maybe larger, maybe smaller, something behind it to give that distance effect. And then we have layer 7, which encompasses the angel statue, to give the angel statue something bigger than it from quite far back. And that is it when it comes to enviro capsule. You can make this as large as you want. It's more or less like a skybox within a skybox within another skybox, and it just keeps on going. So the key is here, it's a sphere. It's completely encompassing. And how you make these textures, I usually make them in Photoshop. These were made via stock images from hills that I've played around with, made sure that they fit in. If they didn't co-join, they kind of just faded down in, so it didn't make too much of a impact in the alignment when they did co-join in a circle or the sphere. And finally, the most important part, if anything, is the main camera controller. Now within this main camera controller you have the GVI editor, which is part of the Google Virtual Reality SDK. Recently ported to work with Unity 5.6, so I'm using the latest one here. Gives you a camera preview. It also contains the audio listener for the spatial audio, both the actual audio listener for Unity and the spatial audio listener for Google VR. What that means is that if I turn around and there are different sources of VR sound or spatial sound, I'll be able to hear them based on the presettings of the sources that each object can take. So for instance, if I go to the crow vlogs, scroll slightly down, as you can see here, there's a GVR audio source script with an audio clip inside it, which is the crow sound effect. Now that's looped, and the alpha and sharpness, basically directivity, and the listener directivity of the actual audio is set here. So you can make it, really specific. You can make it emanate, around a radius around the object, and it can allow you to draw the focus of the viewer or the user to certain aspects of the world that you create. Now, as you can see, I've created a very limited display here. You have an angel statue and a crow. Those are the only 3D objects, apart from obviously the podium. The only objects there that are 3D, and they're all assets from Unity Store. So the only real effort here is creating the correct sphere, creating the right shade of, I guess, the skybox, because if I go into display, if you saw it earlier, it was slightly grey and gloomy. That's what I wanted to recreate based on what I was aiming for. It's a Viking Norse kind of setting. But that's pretty much all there is to it. Now the research that allowed me to get to this stage was probably the most time consuming part. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be definitely developing this further, so you'll be seeing more examples, and hopefully once I get all the documentation done, this will go live in the Unity Asset Store, depending on whether or not people are interested. So yeah, that's Mantas signing over and out.